1v1, double cleanliness, group pet, super love. After crossing the border, Ranran was forced into the palace, Gongdou. No, she's just a salted fish. Writing storybooks, planting vegetables, fighting against landlords, opening beauty shops, day after day. One day, the former minister accused the Empress of inaction. Prime Minister's father. My daughter, do you have any objections? General's elder brother. My younger sister, can someone else say? The second brother of the Minister of Personnel said, who led the way. Let's take note of it in a small notebook and talk about it at the end of the year. The wealthiest third brother in the capital said, although my official position is not as big as yours, there are many good things in my shop. If you talk about my sister, don't even think about buying things in my store in the future. Just wait one by one to go home and kneel on the washboard. Princess Chang. Who said bad things about my sister? Law. My sister. Law is super well behaved. Empress Dowager said, this is a testament to my family's grief. I have never seen a child who is more filial than her. The concubines in the harem said, yes, yes, the Empress is the best. Ranran learned the news. Woo-woo, everyone likes me so much, it's so touching. The emperor directly guarded the person and said, shut up, everyone. The Empress is mine. Keywords of the novel. Emperor, Xianyu Empress. She doesn't want the cold palace without pop-ups. Chapter 1. The backstage of others is super hard. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. The backstage of others is super hard in the third year of yuaning in Beiyu Kingdom, on June 6, summer. Changel Palace. Kaiyue glanced in the direction of the door. Under the dark sky, there are lanterns reflecting candlelight, but the road surface is still empty, with no trace of the emperor's honor guard. Not only that, the palace is cold and deserted everywhere, and those who don't know think it's a cold palace. Kaiyue was extremely worried and said, Madam, today is your first day in the palace. If the emperor doesn't come to your side, why don't you go over? Don't do it. Take a bite of the grape, spit out the grape skin, and Ranran directly vetoed it. Time travel is fine, why rush to flatter people again? Kaiyue couldn't agree with her attitude and murmured in her ear, there is also a beauty named Su and a talented person named Xianyu in your palace. You must have some sense of crisis. Ranran stood up her ears and continued to eat grapes, spitting out the grape skins. So, with her, there are currently 3 people in the emperor's harem. Then we can gather and fight against the landlord. Ranran had a rough understanding before entering the palace. The ranks of this harem, from high to low, are Empress, Noble Consort, Zhao Yi, Concubine, Noble Lady, Beauty, Talent, and the last one is Lady Kai. She entered the palace as a concubine. Although not very high, now the Empress's position is vacant. Speaking of her position as a concubine, it can be considered sharp in the emperor's harem. At present, in the palace, she only has the emperor and Empress Dowager above her head. Upon closer reflection, life is not too bad either. Ranran felt some itching on her hands, and with just one tap, she killed a mosquito. She spread out her white paws towards Kaiyue and said, Kaiyue, let's close the door. Don't wait, the emperor will definitely not come. Look, mosquitoes have flown in to suck my blood. Kaiyue glanced several times, unable to see any trace of the emperor. She could only close the door and turned around, earnestly saying, Madam, you are not in the mansion now. You cannot be stubborn anymore. Ranran nodded in a calm tone and said, My father is the prime minister of the current dynasty, my elder brother is a victorious general stationed at the border, my second brother is a servant of the Ministry of Personnel, and although my third brother is not very good and has gone to do business, he is still the richest man in the capital now. His grandfather comes from the Chen family in Huaiyang. So, even if he is stubborn, I can still do it. She playfully blinked at Kaiyue and said, even if it's not good, there's also the Empress Dowager who will take care of me. After all, the Empress Dowager is her own aunt. Emperor Yuan Chen was initially unwilling to come to Changle Palace. It was not his intention to let Qi Ranran enter the palace. At that time, the Empress Dowager wanted him to give Qi Ran the title of Empress. But the Qi family is already in great power, how can he allow for a second position? So, despite the opposition of the Empress Dowager, she was granted the position of Empress Qi. Unexpectedly, he quietly arrived at the Changle Palace, with the main hall door tightly closed, but he was the first to hear such words. My face immediately turned cold. Sure enough, the rumors are not false. This is just an arrogant person who relies on favor. It seems that this imperial concubine's position is still given too high. Swirl your sleeves and leave immediately. Kaiyue was shocked when she heard the sound and opened the door. She happened to see the figure of the emperor sweeping away, her face turning pale, and she was horrified. Madam, it's the emperor. What? Qi Ranran supported the table and stood up. I didn't see my face, but I saw a figure. It looks quite tall. Still groaning in anger. So, is this? Angry. But what she said is the truth. Qi Ranran felt her head was a bit heavy and pulled out 2 golden hairpins. Today's hairstyle is making her scalp ache, she needs to quickly remove it. Kaiyue looked at her staring ahead and advised, Madam, the emperor must have heard what you said just now. Why don't you go over and explain it? Qi Ranran fixed her gaze on the direction, her eyes turning slightly red, and gradually tears filled her eyes. Knock on a small blackboard, 1. The ancient saying in this article is fictional. 1v1, little sweet one, men and women are both sweet and warm, growing together and experiencing together. P.S. The female protagonist, Solyu, has been in the kingdom of Beiyu for some time. The male and female leads are not close relatives and have no blood relationship. In the year of the female lead in hairpin, the male lead passed the year of weak coronation. 2. There are also confusions that can be found in the book review section, with answers to the top comments. 3. In addition, because the female protagonist is passionate about eating, there will be delicious food appearing, and there are accompanying pictures in the book circle. Be cautious when reading late at night. 4. First release QQ reading. 5. Finally, thank you for your support. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Oh, being demoted. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. Oh, being demoted. When Kaiyue was about to persuade her not to be sad, she saw Qi Ranran reach out to block her lips, yawn heavily, and stretch lazily, muttering words in her mouth. I've been wanting to yawn for a while now, and after holding it back for a while, I finally managed to yawn. Kaiyue. After pausing for a moment, Kaiyue kindly advised, Empress, why don't you go to the emperor's place? Qi Ranran twisted her eyebrows into waves. With a powerful family to rely on and such a large palace, isn't it happy to fish and eat and drink every day? Why use a hot face to stick to a cold butt? So, Qi Ranran shook her head in disagreement. Didn't he leave? It's already so late, he must have gone back to bed. Let's also have the people below close the palace door and sleep. After speaking, he lowered his head and began to pull at his clothes. This imperial palace attire has 3 layers inside and 3 layers outside, making it difficult to remove. Facing the direction of the colorful moon, I spread out my hand and let out a long shout, Color Moon. Kaiyue walked over, undressing her while worrying, what if? What if the emperor gets angry? Qi Ranran obediently raised her hand, her attitude indifferent, great demotion, no big deal going to the cold palace. Anyway, Xiaoming will definitely be able to stay. After all, her back end is not as hard as usual. Kaiyue looked heartbroken and said, Madam. Qi Ranran touched her head and gave her a very complicated look, Child, you don't understand. Rare things are precious. The emperor is not an exclusive public item for her. Why is she so rare? Isn't it fragrant to have enough to eat and drink and fight against landlords? Unfortunately, entering the palace is already enough to hold back, so we should try our best to live a comfortable life in our hearts. After speaking, he bent down and climbed directly onto the bed. When you stretch your legs and lie flat, it feels comfortable. When her hands were folded in front of her abdomen, ready to close her eyes, she didn't forget to wave her hand at Kaiwe. Good night. On the other side, Yuan Chen returned to the Taihe palace with a cold and stern face. Handsome is handsome. But the aura is too cold to be seen much. The people in the palace dare not even show their grandeur upon seeing this. Yuan Chen pondered while holding his hand. Since Qi's daughter thinks the imperial concubine's position is good, then he is not as interested as her. Someone, pass on my decree to demote consort Qi as a bride. Li Gongdong didn't understand, but after going out for a while, he became furious when he came back. Didn't you go to the Empress's Chang'e palace? Are you dissatisfied with Empress Qi? But it's only been a quarter of an hour. The anger of the emperor was extraordinary. Yuan Chen's cold eyes pierced like ice cones. What's wrong with being stunned? Hurry up and go. Li Gongdong's neck was cold, but he still felt it was necessary to mention, Your Majesty, Kainu. Kainu is the lowest position. Not even a grade level. It's no different from a palace maid. That is the only daughter of Prime Minister Qi and the niece of the Empress Dowager. Well, even if you don't look at the monk's face, you have to look at the Buddha's face. Yuan Chen thought of what Qi Ranran had just said and let out a heavy sigh. If it weren't for considering her identity, such a person would have been thrown into the cold palace. Knowing that the emperor was really angry, Li Gongdong swallowed his saliva and said, Emperor, please 3. Without saying the word think, Yuan Chen had already taken a glance. Do you have any ambiguity about my will? Li Gongdong immediately lowered his head and accepted the order, yes. But in the next moment, Li Gongdong found it difficult again. This Empress Qi is a concubine, which is why she has been appointed to the Chang'e Palace. Will this palace be relocated or not, demoting Empress Qi as a bride? In the palace, there has never been a single woman occupying a palace. Li Gongdong, who couldn't make up his mind, requested permission, Your Majesty, should we move the palace? Yuan Chen's gaze was haughty, and when he frowned, he spoke coldly, I said I moved the palace. Li Gongdong. This newcomer is too arrogant. He just wanted to give a warning, not to be a slut. When he turned his head, Li Gongdong wiped the sweat off his forehead. At the age of 17, the emperor ascended to the throne and served 3 years of mourning as a tribute to filial piety. During this period, the harem was empty. Su Meiren and Zheng Kairen arrived earlier this year, but the emperor had never seen them before. Finally, I had a Empress Qi, who was also from a prestigious and powerful family, but the result. Ah sigh. Forget it, he should pass on the imperial decree first. So that night, an imperial decree was passed down throughout the 6 palaces to demote consort Qi as Qi Kainu. The next day, Qi Ranran slept until 3 poles in the morning before waking up. And Kaiwe had already turned her eyes into walnuts by her bedside. Qi Ranran heard the crying and was stunned. She pursed her lips, frowned, and finally sat up from the bed holding a pillow. Seeing Kaiwe kneeling by her bedside crying, she let out a deep sigh and spoke sincerely, as soon as I opened my eyes, I heard you crying by my bed. It really doesn't feel good. Looking forward to everyone's check. And recommend my friend Yanyang's, Busy Getting Rich in Ancient Times, which is also very beautiful for ancient business. There is also, Pak Pao's, Farming in the Farmhouse. Brave Sister Sweet Road Ziyi, end of this chapter. Chapter 3. From now on, hiding through. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. From now on, hiding through. Kaiwe shed tears and said, Madam, you have been demoted to Kainu, Woo. Picking girls. Qi Ranran's mind was still a bit confused. She counted with her fingers and suddenly realized, oh, it's the one at the bottom. Kaiyue cried loudly, my Empress. Qi Ranran lightly patted her shoulder and sincerely suggested, Kaiyue, don't cry with this voice, it's easy to misunderstand. Kaiyue's tears couldn't stop, I'm not worth it for you. Why? Why was I demoted to Kainu? Putting on her shoes and stepping on the ground, Qi Ranran raised her hands above her head and stretched lazily, he's not happy. Kaiyue hurriedly wiped her tears with her sleeve and said, so. Should we think of some way? No, no, no. Qi Ranran shook her finger and said, it's great to be with you like a tiger. In the future, we can stay far away from him. It's easy, safe, and happy. Kaiyue. Because Qi Ranran was suddenly demoted, rumors about Yuan Chen's gloomy and unpredictable personality spread throughout the palace. Among them, the most worried are Su Meiren and Jing Kairen. Jing Kairen sat down on the chair and stomped his hammer, oh my, I've heard that the emperor is difficult to get along with. It seems like this is true. Su Meiren covered her heart, feeling worried. Yes, Empress Qi. After saying it, she realized something was wrong and immediately changed her mind. In terms of her family background, there is no second one in the northern Yu kingdom. Despite being so prominent, she was still demoted, let alone us. Jing Kairen wiped the sweat off his forehead and felt scared. Fortunately, I haven't seen the emperor yet. If it were just me, I wouldn't have completely finished my life, he said. Su Meiren said, I think the same way. I'm timid and can't help but be scared. Jing Kairen shook his head and said, don't say that. Although I'm brave, I can't help but be scared. Putting it on Qi Ranran's body is a derogatory position, maybe it would just be a beheading on them. After a breath, the two exchanged a glance and spoke in unison, it seems that we should stay away from the emperor in the future. It seems that in the future, we should stay away from the emperor. The two of them held hands together, and Su Meiren's eyes were filled with tears. That's great, talented sister. I also think so. The imperial palace is not easy, and we must be together in the future. Jing Kairen patted her shoulder and gave her an encouraging look, don't worry, girl. We definitely need to be together frequently in the future. Su Meiren was weak and hurt, but she still held Jing Kairen's hand. Although my rank is higher than yours now, we will call ourselves sisters from now on. Jing Kairen nodded and said, it's also good. At the same time, in court and in the palace. After the Empress Dowager stood up, she learned of the news that Qi Ranran had been demoted. So, after Yuan Chen finished his political affairs, he invited someone over and directly focused on the key points. Emperor, what mistake did Ranran make? Why did she demote her position? It also plummeted to the bottom. This is unprecedented in the entire Beiyu kingdom. Yuan Chen was dressed in a black brocade robe, with a golden dragon pattern perched on his back. He sat upright, and was priceless. His handsome face was expressionless, and his aura made the temperature of the entire palace decrease. His voice remained calm as he said, the women of the Qi family are surly, their words are twisted, and they are not worthy of the imperial concubine's position. The Empress Dowager choked and couldn't believe it. The emperor didn't even go to the Changle Palace last night and didn't even see Ranran's face. How do you know her temperament? How do you know her appearance? How do you know she's not worthy? End of this chapter. Chapter 4. I Can Still Eat. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. I Can Still Eat. Yuan Chen remained silent. He can't say he went for a walk alone and then went back. Isn't that very embarrassing? The Empress Dowager let out a low sigh when she saw the cold and stern attitude of the emperor beside her, and then said, you were supposed to appoint Ranran as the Empress Dowager, but you insisted on giving her the position of Empress Dowager, and now you are directly demoted to Kainu. Where do you put the face of the AI and Qi families? Speaking of this, Yuan Chen is even more resistant. With cold eyes and a stern tone, the Qi family is now in great power. How can the Qi family's daughter become a queen again? Why doesn't the mother even understand this truth? The Empress Dowager was taken aback and then looked at the young man in front of her. Although it has just passed the year of the weak crown, the imperial aura around him is indeed incomparable to that of the weak prince in the past. With this in mind, the Empress Dowager was supported by Sun Mama beside her, and when she was focused, she sighed, the lips are gone and the teeth are cold. The emperor is intelligent, and this truth should be understood. Yuan Chen remained silent. After speaking, the Empress Dowager stopped persuading and supported her forehead. It's just that, as my family is getting older and lacks energy, I won't keep the emperor anymore. Yuan Chen stood up and said, my son, please leave. After Yuan Chen left, Sun Mama next to the Empress Dowager stepped forward and said, Empress Dowager, this is. The emperor is wary of the AI and Qi families. With this in mind, the Empress Dowager shook her head again and said, the emperor is not the biological son of the AI family. In this harem, there must still be someone close by blood to the AI family. Ranran is the niece of the AI family, and no one is more suitable to be by their side than her. It's just a pity. There are pros and cons to things. I think it's also because of Ranran's identity that the emperor refused to get close to Ranran. Sun Mama said, Master Qi is clever and considerate, and he will definitely be favored by the emperor in the future. Empress Dowager. I hope so. Coming out of the Chowha Hall, Yuan Chen walked silently on the road. Lips gone and teeth cold. The 4 words of the Empress Dowager reminded him of the past. At first, he was just a weak prince, with a humble birth mother who was neither legitimate nor eldest. The current Empress Dowager, the former Empress Dowager's consort, chose him and raised him on her lap. Prime Minister Qi also helped him win the race for the throne. As early as he was succeeded by the Empress Dowager, he and the Qi family shared weal and woe. Although the Qi family has great power nowadays, they have never done anything beyond the norm. Is it really that he thinks too much? When thinking this way, I looked up and found that I had already arrived at the Changle Palace. It was not intentional to come. The Taiha Palace and Changle Palace are the closest among many palaces, representing the residences of the Empress Dowager of the Northern Yu Kingdom. The Empress Dowager's bestowal of the Changle Palace to the daughter of the Qi family has already demonstrated everything. When thinking so, Yuan Chen lifted his foot and walked directly into the Changle Palace. Li Gongdou, who followed behind, stared straight and quietly followed behind. Oh, as soon as the emperor saw the Empress Dowager, he came to Changle Palace for a play. The master and servant in the Changle Palace were unaware of the situation. Qi Ranran rolled up her sleeves and stuffed a mouthful of rice into her mouth, holding a large bowl of red hair and blood. Kaiyue saw that she had already eaten 2 bowls of rice and was preparing to remove the 3rd bowl she was eating. Upon seeing this, Qi Ranran immediately hugged the bowl and looked protective. What a divine horse. Kaiyue said, my little master, this is already the 3rd bowl. Because the position below Jiaoyi cannot be called Empress anymore, Kaiyue can only be called Master. Qi Ranran protected the bowl with one hand and moved the stool aside with the other, deliberately distancing herself from Kaiyue. But I can still eat, she said. Kaiyue. Besides, we cannot waste food. On the day of hoeing, sweat drips down the soil from the grass, but little did we know that every grain of rice we eat is hard. Every grain of rice we eat must think of the hard work of the farmer uncle. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Positive Duel. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Positive Duel. After speaking, he picked up a bite of rice with his hot and spicy tripe. Kaiyue helplessly prepared the remaining rice and thought to herself, Master, you can eat as much as you want. How could you still say this grandiose truth? Seeing the melancholic expression on Xianyu's face beside her, Ranran, who was full, thought she had eaten too much. She patted her white little hand and said, "Xianyue, why is this expression? Are you unhappy? Let me sing for you." After speaking, I had a full hiccup and calmed my mood. Back in the day, she was also a popular singer on KTV, known as the Chinese Little Song Library, and there were no songs she couldn't sing. Sister is the queen. Hey, confidence shines brightly, wealth is remarkable, and sister is also very self-reliant. She is not afraid of wind, frost, snow, rain, and flies against the wind, living like a beam of light, illuminating the world. After only singing a few lines, the joyful tone instantly pushed back the tears in the corners of Xianyu's eyes. Xianyue raised her hand and wiped away her tears, unable to laugh or cry. "Master, how could you still be so happy?" Ranran stopped her voice and scratched her head. "How can we say this?" As a modern person, Ranran didn't have that much compassion for heaven and earth. Seeing Xianyu's worried expression, she touched her chin and thought for a moment. Finally, the two brothers seemed to hug Xianyu's shoulder and earnestly taught her. "Xianyue, you must remember that this person is alive, happy for a day, and unhappy for a day. Living is not easy enough, don't always think about the future. There are countless things in the future that you can never imagine, so what's more important is to cherish the present and be happy every day." Xianyue sucked her nose, her tears blurred. This is her little master. Although playful, he always says something touching unexpectedly. Outside the door, Yuan Chen heard Ranran's words about cherishing food inside. He thought she was pretending, but he didn't expect her to sing an unknown tune in a while. She furrowed her brow and was about to leave when she heard her words afterwards. "This mood is really going up and down, back and forth. It feels like just one night has passed, and this person seems to have changed." Yuan Chen remained calm, his lips pursed into a line. Li Gongdou, standing beside him, shouted with great eyes, "The emperor is here." Yuan Chen kicked out directly and cursed, "Dog thing." Li Gongdou only smiled with a regretful expression. Ranran was taken aback for a moment. This voice. Why does it sound a bit close? Before Xianyue could clean the table, Yuan Chen had already walked in. Speaking of which, this is their first time meeting in broad daylight, cough cough, no, it's a formal meeting. So, Ranran wanted to perform as well as possible. As soon as I looked up, I saw the emperor walking in. With dark clothes and black hair, sword eyebrows and phoenix eyes, a straight nose, thin lips, and a clear jawline, the demeanor of the whole body is aloof, with an unpleasant appearance. Ranran took a quick glance and quickly withdrew her gaze. Her lips pursed lightly, and she couldn't help but sigh in her heart. Why do you have to put on a serious old cadre look when you have a young face? What a blind face. Just as she was thinking so, Xianyue couldn't help but see the red light at the corner of her mouth and gestured. Ranran instinctively wanted to find a handkerchief, but couldn't find it for a while, so she habitually rubbed her sleeve against it. By the way, the northern Yu kingdom wears long robes. Yuan Chen caught a glimpse of this scene from the corner of his eye, and his face turned black immediately. Is this the etiquette taught by the Qi family since childhood? End of this chapter. Chapter 6. No humble or proud posture. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. No humble or proud posture. Ranran was taken aback for a moment. I thought the emperor was here to inspect the post. I didn't expect it to be a nitpick. Ranran felt very unhappy about this. The Qi family is her family, and if you want to walk horizontally, it all depends on your family. But home is home, she is her. Her family is the backing, so when it's time to separate, we still have to separate. I saw her politely bow and slowly explain, my family education is not like this, but I am the only daughter in the mansion and have been weak since childhood. My mother passed away early, and my father and brother were too busy with political affairs. Although I invited a nanny to teach me, I couldn't resist my temper. Therefore, I did fall behind in etiquette. After speaking, he bowed in the direction of Yuan Chen and said, however, I haven't been out of the mansion much, so I'm not known to anyone. The meaning of this is that my mother passed away early, and my father and a few brothers work for you and your family every day, so they don't have time to care about me. So, if you want to say that, just say I'm alone and don't bring them along. Moreover, I don't go out very much, so even if I feel embarrassed, I have never been outside. By the way, my body and bones have not been very good since I was young. If you want to hit me, you need to be more careful. As for the rest, let's do whatever you want. These words were spoken with neither humility nor arrogance, and Li Gongdou, who was standing aside, couldn't help but admire them in his heart. Take a look, what does a big family demeanor mean? That's it. Sure enough, her family has a strong influence and speaks with a tough tone. Looking at the entire harem, no one dared to speak up straight in front of the emperor. How could Yuan Chen not have heard her meaning? His lips tightly pursed into a line, and he gave her an expressionless glance. He had no less airs than he should have. Since he has entered the palace, he should also learn the etiquette he should have learned. Ranran nodded obediently and cooperated, yes. Next, the two of them had nothing to say. Ranran belongs to those who are not familiar with others and will not have words to talk to. Yuan Chen felt that her behavior was strange and unpredictable, with nothing to say. The two main lords remained silent, while Li Gongdou and Kaiyue beside them looked really anxious, and they all gave Ranran a glance. Ranran saw their eyes squeezing towards her. Even a fool knows that she's going to take the initiative to find a topic. But awkward chatting is not her skill. But most afraid of the quiet air. And it's always quiet. So, it's better to be awkward than to speak. She politely greeted, Your Majesty, have you eaten? Yuan Chen's gaze swept over the table, a large red bowl with a layer of spicy food floating on it. It made him choke his throat and furrowed his brow. Ranran saw him frown and thought he wanted to eat, so she quickly said, There's nothing inside. Li Gongdou's mouth twitched, his expression difficult to describe in words. I thought to myself, Lord Qi, even if there is still leftover inside, do you want the emperor to eat the leftover? Yuan Chen. What is this? Ranran's eyes lit up and he said, Hair and blood are flourishing. We cannot blame Yuan Chen for not knowing. After arriving in the northern Yu Kingdom, Ranran discovered a crucial point. The diet of Beiyu Kingdom is mainly light and advocates for a healthy diet. It's not bad, eating too much can make it too tasteless. Obviously, Yuan Chen was used to eating light food and frowned. When it comes to food, Ranran became interested and enthusiastically introduced it. There are duck blood, hairy tripe, fatty intestines, ham, bean sprouts, vermicelli inside. If you like, you can also add some shrimp and meat. After copying these ingredients, add oil, heat them up, and then pour in garlic, Sichuan pepper, and scallions. If you like spicy, add more spicy. After frying until fragrant, add the secret sauce, add water, and boil to bring out the pot. It's both spicy and fragrant, delicious and ready to eat. Of course, the secret sauce here is her homemade hot pot base. End of this chapter. Chapter 7 is disregarded. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7 is disregarded. Seeing her drooling, those who didn't know thought she hadn't eaten. Upon hearing what she said about duck blood and fat intestines, Yuan Chen's face was completely disgusted. How can animal organs be eaten? And that duck blood, it's such a filthy thing. The sound of reprimand was about to come out of my mouth, but I first saw the clear eyes of Ranran. This suddenly reminded him of the cheerful tone he had just heard outside the door. As the topic changed, he spoke again. What did you sing just now? I've never heard of it before. Ranran's mind was moving fast. The song I dreamt of last night. Dream. She can still dream, indicating that she slept well last night. Since entering the Changle Palace, Yuan Chen's furrowed brows have not relaxed, and he suddenly said, sing again. Ranran looked stunned and said, huh. The nearby Kaiwe was also surprised by the same design. Although Li Gongdong was also surprised, he had been serving Yuan Chen for a long time and had developed a flexible expression. Master Qi, hurry up, he said. Ranran was a bit confused. Although this request may seem strange, who made him the representative of imperial power? So, she clapped her hands and played the rhythm for herself, singing weakly, Sister is the queen, confident and shining, rich and impressive, and she is also very self-reliant. She is not afraid of wind, frost, snow and rain, but also flies against the wind, living like a beam of light, illuminating the world. It's okay. Yuan Chen interrupted with a voice. Although it's the same piece of music, there's something different listening now. He snorted, his posture full of disgust, his eyes disdainful, and even though he looked like a teenager, he had to follow the instructions of an old cadre. Words don't form words, tone doesn't form tone, what kind of behavior is it? As a woman, singing such a song is beneath one's dignity. What other queen is there? This is what she can say nonsense. Ranran said, She remained silent in her heart, and this song was sung when she was high. A weak tone like her now, of course, cannot capture the essence. But on a sunny day, frowning and frowning, facing a big black face with ice, how could you get so excited? So, she is now standing at attention, obediently waiting for instructions. After waiting for a while, Yuan Chen said again, do you have any objections to my will? No. Ranran understood. Royal, the most unreasonable place. Reward is also reward, punishment is also reward. They the final say everything. She decisively flattered the emperor and said, the emperor has his own considerations. Yuan Chen's corner of his eye swept over her face and saw that she was quite sensible and didn't stay any longer. He lifted his foot and left. After watching the emperor leave completely, Ranran returned with Kaiwe. Kaiwe let out a breath and said, today was really close. Fortunately, it didn't make the emperor unhappy again. Ranran placed her fingers on her chin, comparing the 8 characters. You know, why does this emperor always like to listen to the walls? Shouldn't he just listen to people's speeches openly? Kaiwe wished she could quickly cover her mouth and say, my little master, be cautious. It's okay, he went far this time. Moreover, she is now standing at the entrance of the main hall. However, the emperor had already listened to her twice, which made her somewhat concerned about whispering. Stepping out of the threshold, Ranran stood on the steps. After careful consideration, she earnestly discussed with her, Kaiwe, do you think we should raise a wang? This way, when the emperor comes, someone will report to us. The people in this palace are afraid of the emperor, so dogs are definitely not afraid. Kaiwe didn't understand. Ranran said, just keep a dog. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. The Mentality of Salted Fish. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. The Mentality of Salted Fish. Kaiwe looked frightened and quickly shook her head, Master, don't want it. I'm afraid of dogs. Ranran paused when she saw that she didn't look like she was joking. Why are you afraid of dogs? Dogs are so cute, they are still good friends of humans. I was bitten by a dog when I was a child. Kaiwe is not a joke, she is really afraid. Just when I heard it, both legs were already trembling. Kaiwe, this is your psychological disorder. Kaiwe shook her head. She doesn't understand what obstacles are, all she knows is that she is afraid of dogs. Ranran saw her resolute refusal in her eyes and gave her a regretful look. You missed a good friend. Kaiyue. She said she really wants to miss it. This love is too heavy, she is just a small palace maid, unable to bear it. Ran dyed her hands and crossed her waist, circling around the courtyard behind the Changle Palace, with plans already in her mind. Rubbing her hands and saying, Kaiyue, you know, this Changle Palace is so big, and I'm the only one. With such a big courtyard, if we're just idle, wouldn't it be a bit wasteful? Kaiyue silently shook her head, feeling a bad premonition. Sure enough, Ranran said in the next second, otherwise, let's plant some vegetables. Nah, expand the pond on the corner of the wall and raise some fish and shrimp. You can watch them on a regular basis and grab them directly when you want to eat. Kaiyue. She is innocent. She thought that after the young master entered the palace, he could change the habit of this dish. It seems that she is still having wild ideas. The masters of other families all love peonies, orchids, plum blossoms, or various exotic herbs. Just the little master of her family likes cucumbers, vegetables, Chinese cabbage, radishes, and beans. It used to be fine in the mansion, but the yard was built casually. Now, this is the palace. Thinking about this, Kaiyue weakly tugged at her hem and said, Master, this is the palace, not the mansion. Ranran should have said, but I don't live here. So how should I arrange it? I should be able to make the decision. My territory is up to me, isn't that right? Kaiyue continued to advise, Master, this does not conform to one's status. Ranran said, Just as Kaiyue thought that Ranran would change her mind, she only heard her clap her hand happily and say, but now I am the last Kainu. I have no status, no attention, so I can live freely. Colorful moon and tearful eyes. What should she say about this? When will her young master be able to push forward a bit in the Taiha Palace on the other side? Upon returning to the palace, Yuan Chen began practicing calligraphy. He thought that what the Empress Dowager said made sense. He was able to ascend to the throne initially thanks to the Qi family, who were the elders of the three dynasties. The men in the family held power in the court, and although the former court and the harem seemed unrelated, they were actually one entity. The low position of the Qi family's female position was indeed inappropriate. When thinking this way, Yuan Chen spoke up and asked, What do you think of Qi Shi? Li Gongdong always perks up his ears when serving in front of the emperor. Therefore, as soon as Yuan Chen spoke out, he immediately made up words in his heart, I feel that Master Qi is a sincere person, and his temperament is lively and pleasing. Lively and likable. Yuan Chen threw his pen as he listened, I see she's also lively. But it's too lively. Li Gongdong smiled awkwardly. I thought to myself, it's because it's too difficult for you to guess. Master Qi's personality is the treasure. One cold and one hot, they complement each other perfectly. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Operation Too Furious. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. Operation Too Furious. Yuan Chen thought of hearing the song sung by Ranran outside the Changle Palace, a truly strange melody, yet still full of joy. Looking at her behavior again, if you say she has no rules, she still carries a hint of restraint. If you say she understands the rules, which family's daughter would wipe her mouth with her sleeves? When he thought about it, his face pulled down again. Forget it, forget it. After all, there is a Qi family behind this Qi woman, and there is an Empress Dowager in this palace. Face and other things still need to be taken into consideration. No big deal, just treat it like there's an extra person in the harem who eats idle food. Anyway, he didn't just raise this one. Conveying my will, the Qi family has excellent talent and skills, which have won my heart and restored them. Li Gongdong was surprised and immediately realized that his eyes lit up. Yes, he said so. During the Sui period, there was another imperial edict that gained fame in the 6 palaces. So, Qi Ranran changed back from Qi Kai's daughter to Qi Fei. At this time, Qi Ranran was working with several nobles in the palace to cultivate land. Kaiyue was very excited when she heard the news. Keki Ranran couldn't get excited at all. It was a day since she was demoted to her original position. This one drop, how can we bluff? Patting the mud on her hands, Qi Ranran truly felt that if this emperor had come to modern times, he would definitely love to play roller coasters. This ups and downs, the electrocardiogram is not as strong as he jumps. However, thinking of the talent in the decree, Qi Ranran's expression was indescribable. Does the emperor's mention of talent necessarily refer to her singing? But didn't he criticize her in person? Criticizing in person and praising behind the scenes is too vulgar. Or rather, he actually likes this kind of tone. Qi Ranran thought for a while but couldn't understand. She shook her head and sighed, oh, a man's heart is really like a needle in the sea. Sayue's face lit up with joy, madam, what are you talking about? Qi Ranran raised her eyebrows high and said, you're really quick to change your tune. Kaiyue smiled happily and said, madam, the emperor has regained your position. Shouldn't you go and thank him? Of course, Xian is secondary, and the most important thing is to establish a good relationship between the empress and the emperor. Qi Ranran stepped back and refused, it wasn't me who made him reset. It's clear that he's unpredictable. Kaiyue urgently shouted, madam, this is in the palace. Qi Ranran understood. No matter where you are or what you do, you must first please the boss above you, otherwise how can you appreciate the value and raise your salary? Now she is in the palace, and the whole palace has to look at the emperor's face to eat. It's not just her boss. But now she doesn't want a promotion or a raise, she just wants to live happily. So, she waved her hand and said, just find someone to reply and thank you. Sayue's voice lengthened, madam, Qi Ranran found an excuse and said, you also saw it today. The emperor always pulled his face when he came. I think he probably didn't want to see me and finally returned. If he said it again and again, it wouldn't be embarrassing. Kaiyue widened her eyes as if she had a sudden realization, nodded, and said, what the empress said makes sense. That's right. Qi Ranran came up with an idea, so, we can hide as far as we can. Who makes this emperor a legendary difficult person to get along with? Although Xianyu was reluctant, she still said, okay. Turning her head to look at the half-cultivated vegetable garden, Kaiyue hesitated and said, then this vegetable. Qi Ranran said, keep planting, or else the fruits of your labor will be in vain. Kaiyue patted her mind, and indeed, it was a vegetable that could never escape. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Embrace a group. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Embrace a group unlike the tranquility of Changle Palace. The news of Qi Ranran's restoration completely confirmed Yuan Chen's unpredictable personality as an emperor. Upon hearing the news, Su Meiren and Zheng Kairen immediately seemed to understand something. Su Meiren said, perhaps we can seek refuge with Empress Qi. Zheng Kairen said, that's what I think too. Su Meiren murmured with a touch in her words, with excellent talent, I think Empress Qi must be an extraordinary woman. The emperor is so difficult to get along with, how could he praise her? How can people with low family background and status survive without holding on to their thighs? The emperor, who is unpredictable, has no hope. If you don't hold your thighs tightly and risk your life first, then it's not worth it. Empress Qi is still reliable. As both women, maybe we can get along better. The palace is so big, to survive, we still have to huddle together. Qi Ranran also has the idea of forming a group. So, she changed her clothes and went to the Empress Dowager's Chauha Palace. Anyway, everyone knows that she and the Empress Dowager have a relationship of aunt and nephew, so it's even more appropriate to be closer. Upon seeing the Empress Dowager, Ranran politely bowed and said, "See the Empress Dowager's mother." The Empress Dowager quickly picked her up and affectionately held her hand. "What's so polite? Just call Aunt Ai as usual. Come sit next to Aunt Ai and let her take a good look." When looking closely, the first thing to see is the red circles deliberately drawn by Ranran. A pair of peach blossom eyes were originally beautiful, but with slightly reddish circles around them, their eyes were hazy and half-wet, especially endearing. With rosy lips and white teeth, bright eyes and beautiful skin, it is not an exaggeration to say that she is a fairy from all over the world. While the Empress Dowager was examining Ranran, she was also admiring her. At around 30 years old, although lacking the childishness of a young woman, there is an indescribable charm, a graceful posture, and an indescribable temperament around the body. Ranran felt happy when she saw the Empress Dowager. Being able to become an Empress Dowager at the age of 30 inexplicably makes her heart race. The Empress Dowager looked at Ranran and said, "Think about it carefully. Our aunt and nephew haven't seen each other for 2 or 3 years. We need to come and see our aunt frequently in the future, and don't be separated." Ranran obediently replied, "Yes." After seeing Ranran, the Empress Dowager felt regretful in her heart. She was such a beautiful niece that the Emperor was just looking at her. This is really thinking of the Emperor's cold and gloomy temperament. The Empress Dowager shook her head in her heart. The Emperor is good everywhere, but his temperament is too difficult to get close to. Therefore, the Empress Dowager could only advise her own niece more. The Empress Dowager spoke earnestly and said, "Ranran, my aunt knows that the position of Empress Dowager has truly wronged you. Fortunately, now that you have regained the throne, according to my aunt's wishes, you and the Emperor should still maintain harmony and have a son by your side as soon as possible, so that your position can be stable." Ranran's heart was filled with joy. Sure enough, this world is the same everywhere. Unmarried reminders for marriage, married reminders for children. Seeing Ranran's forced smile on her face, the Empress Dowager understood her thoughts. "I explained 2 more sentences, Emperor. His temperament has been a bit heavy. Before coming to my side, he suffered some injustice in his childhood, which has led to this child's always cold temperament." After finishing speaking, he patted Ranran's hand and entrusted him with a mediocre task, but now that Ranran has arrived, it must be different. Originally, Ranran didn't understand, but after hearing the Empress Dowager's explanation, she understood. "This is because when I was a child, I didn't have a sense of security, and as I grow up, no one can trust me anymore." That's right, he must be a werewolf if he can win from so many princes and become emperor. P.S. Yuan Chen, coldly disdainful. Little fairy. Which fairy can eat so much like her? Ranran, feeling not good. This is a blatant attack from you. Yuan Chen. Humph. Ranran. You can't be jealous of me just because I'm good-looking, eat more than you, and even more popular than you. Yuan Chen. End of this chapter.